Hey guys, my name is Nabiri and it's time for another kicking of the week, and today I want to show you how I made a kick that's inspired by rebellion and a little bit of disturb. So the kick that we're going to be talking about is this one. I'm really happy how this one turned out, and I'm noticing that when I'm making new kicks for my own tracks, I'll frequently use this kick as a sample somewhere in the layering process. But yeah, if you watch my videos more often, you know that I make my kicks in Serum, most of the times at least. So that's what we're going to start out with today as well. So in this Serum, when I created this punch, the punch itself out of Serum sounds like this. And I like it, but there's two particular things that really make this punchy sound. So it's actually using this LFO on some of the parameters, for example with this filter, and over here with the EQ as well, to just create an extra punch. I just want to show you that when you're making a punch, you got your nice pitching envelope, you got the right sounds, and you got the right filters, and it's sounding okay, but it's not sounding punchy enough, like this. You can just use this same curve, put it on some of the parameters. So for example, this little peak over here for the resonance in the EQ. And if you only put this on here a tiny bit, it can already just change this sound in such a more punchy result. So it's really getting a little bit more focused on the right parts. And then right now it's nothing special yet, but then if we do that same trick with the filter over here, you'll notice that it's really getting that character punch that we're hearing in the end result as well. So when you're working on a Serum punch as well, and you got a nice sound but you want to have it more punchy, just try it with this trick and maybe your punch will sound even better and more punchy. Then I of course exported this punch layer and I cut off all the end of it because we didn't need that, and I just applied some effects on here, and I felt it needed to be a little bit more tight and a little bit more focused on that resonance. So over here I'm boosting that a little bit and I'm pulling it through quite some heavy distortion. And this is just changing the sound from how we exported it in Serum, and it sounds like this, to this. So it becomes a little bit more quiet, but I feel the sound becomes a little bit more tight and a little bit more focused and just better in general. And then I just apply some EQ to just balance stuff out. So then I exported the punch layer with the distortion that we created, and yeah, it was nice, but it just needed some more body, and I'm using Kick 2 for that. And in Kick 2 I'm just putting some points down in this pitch envelope, and yeah, I'm just playing around with it, seeing where it gets in phase. And now you might not have Kick 2, so this might feel like an impossible thing for you, but if you have any kind of kick sample, so for example, we go in here, some bass drum, something like this for example, and if we want to play around with a pitching envelope, you can always try to use the pogo. And if you don't have FL Studio and you can't use the pogo, but you do have Nimble Kick, then you can maybe use the pogo inside of Nimble Kick to just do the same thing and try to get this club kick layer over here, or this one, to kind of fit it with that punch over here. So let me just try for fun to see if we can get this club kick to fit with our punch over here. I think this actually makes it fit a lot better. Like, it's just a little bit of a feeling that you have to get used to listening to. But if I take away this pogo effect, it sounds like this. And it's nice, but I don't feel it reinforces the punch in the right way. And if we then pogo it a little bit, it sounds like this. So it's all just about shaping shaping that club kick layer to reinforce the punch that we created in the right way. But I'm using kick 2 for that in this instance. So over here we take our kick 2 and our punch layer and we put that through a buzz. And this little buzz over here is just gonna get some highs boosted, and this distortion over here is nothing too extreme, but it's just there to glue the sound a little bit together. Sometimes the sounds just sound a little bit like they're two separate sounds, and this distortion helped me get a little bit more of a focused and glued together sound for this punch. So if we take away this effects, it sounds like this. And with that effects on there, it sounds like this. So it's just a little bit more united. So right now we got the punch done actually. We don't do anything anymore to this punch all the way through the end result. And right now we're gonna start working on our tail. And for the tail, I just like to use an automation clip like this so that we can play the tail behind the punch and listen to the sounds together, and we're sure that we're just not fucking up the punch with this tail layer over here. But it just helps me know for sure that the tail or the basic character layer that I'm creating works together with my punch. So opening up this Serum instance, I'll just mute the punch for now. It looks like this, and again, as I did with that punch layer, I made lots of little parameters move so that it's just a little bit more organic, and that's just really important. So over here we have this LFO, and it makes the wavetable move, and that's the bare minimum, but we're also making this filter move. And over here with this one, we make this part of the frequency knob of this filter move, and over here we're making the cutoff move, and this one is also making this EQ move. So what I basically want to tell you is that whenever you're working on a basic sound in Serum, your basic character for your kick, and you're kind of having that character done, really try to put as much little movement in there, but of course keep focusing on the full sound and make sure that it sounds nice. But just, put some little movement in there, and it's gonna make your kick sound a lot more organic. I'm gonna take away these effects shortly and just show you how they process the sound and just make the sound into its end result. If we just take this oscillator and the wavetable and making that move a little bit, it sounds like this. And it's nice, but it's really bare minimum for our tail character, but it has the basic movement that we want in there. Then I'm applying this filter, and with the filter you can of course also do a little bit less of the mix, so you don't have to have it open all the way, but you can tweak it down a little bit and just see if it changes the sound in the way you want. I'm just gonna bypass these two for now, and this filter is changing the sound into this. So we're shaping it a little bit more and making it a little bit more into our end result that we want. If we then make these parameters move, it's already just creating a more organic sound, like I said. So then we're getting this sound. And that's just nice for when we play this punch together with this tail. It's gonna kind of glue this higher punch with this downward moving filter that we're creating over here. For example, if we take away this movement over here, it's just gonna sound a little bit more like two separate layers. So right now, it's just emphasizing a little bit more of that crunch. And then in the effects section, I'm first of all applying an EQ. And with this EQ, I'm just boosting the lows and making it a little bit more warm. And that's already creating, some more warmth for this tail. And it sounds like this. So we're having this really high and crunchy layer right now. And we're using this EQ as our first step to shape this sound some more. And that's quite important for this end result. Then I'm using this extra comb filter, and this comb filter, it doesn't do too much, but I just felt I needed it. And making this move a little bit just creates more organic sound again. And then I'm finishing it off with a hyper, putting the retrig on so that it plays the same phasing through each playback. And I'm just playing around with the mix and the detune and rate just to see where it reinforces the sound that we're creating. So yeah, it should kind of build on what you're already having. So yeah, that's the final tweaks that we did to this Serum layer over here. And that's our first layer done. So then, of course, I exported that layer, and it was just nice and crunchy, characterized, but it just sounded way too weak to sound like a full till, or just apply a warm layer under there. So I felt I needed another till layer, and I made that in Serum again, and that one sounds like this. So it's a lot more resonant, but it's also the layer that makes this cake a lot more interesting to listen to. And that Serum instance looks like this. And what I did over here is I changed from my normal using a sine wave and a random wavetable into using two random wavetables. Sometimes when you're sticking to one way of creating sounds, you often have to switch it up to just see what other methods there are to create a nice sound. And that's why I just chose to use two wavetables, and I'm just making both of them move. And yeah, just seeing if I can get a nice crunchy sound out of there. And also because I was still going to end this warm layer over here, I figured it wouldn't matter too much if I'd start with this sine layer over here, or if I'd start with two wavetables. But yeah, let me just strip off these effects on here, the filter gone, and well, just the bare minimum sound of these oscillators going through some distortion sounds like this. And at this stage, I'm just listening if it sounds nice and crunchy. And it does, but it just needs some shaping. And this time I used the comb filter. So I'm just going through all these filters, playing around with the cutoff and just listening to where it sounds nice. So for example, I have to remind this because otherwise it's not going to sound the same. We're at 48 right now. So we're just playing with this. Just playing like that, just tweaking it a tiny bit and just seeing how it shapes that sound and moving the resonance and drive up a little bit. Just seeing where it fits that sound. And then it's creating this more, I think it's more low, more warm, growly sound. And that already makes us ready to move into the effects section. Again, I'm just using an EQ. First of all, I tend to always just get done on this first part over here. Then in the effects section, I always first apply an EQ because that's just the most easy way to shape a sound a little bit. And then if I feel it needs some more tweaking, I might add a new filter or a hyper. So basically when you're done at that first part in the oscillators, then you can just apply an EQ, and then afterwards you can maybe apply a filter or a hyper. It's maybe a little bit of a easy step-by-step way you can create your sounds in Serum. So taking away this little movement from the LFO, this EQ already does quite much. It's boosting this resonant frequency that we're needing for this till to be more characterized. And that sounds like this. And it sounds nice, but it's almost becoming too resonant. And especially when I'm applying this extra LN filter, it might sound like it's just becoming too much. I've boosted this resonance some more with this filter and the cutoff over here. As you can see, the resonance is up really high, but I'm gonna use this movement in the frequency over here to create that character that's gonna make the original kick, the full kick, really stand out. It's really making the movement of our kick. Just this tiny little tweak and create that character for this layer. After I had done this, I just had to tweak it a little bit more, get some more movement in here, and that's why I used this LFO that was on the wavetable position. I used that on the EQ as well. So we're just making this little peak over here move. So we're creating this sound. And that's just making it a little bit more playful and just a little bit more, it just shifts the crunch a little bit higher. And then we're finishing it off with a hyper, again putting the retrig on and just playing around with these knobs. Still, it sounds nice. And exporting that sound and putting it together with the other tail layer that we made, it sounds like this. Now, a little thing I want to show you though is that you don't need to use the full sound or use it in the same phase as it comes out of Serum. As you can see, as I would use it straight out of Serum, I would have to place it like this, but that doesn't really fit with all the other sounds that I'm putting in here. So just keep it in the back of your mind that you can always just cut off some sound, just play around with it and move it until it sounds nice. You don't need to use a complete sound. You can even use just a tiny bit and play around with that to just create a nice sound. By moving your waveforms around a little bit, you can really affect the end result that your kick is gonna sound like. So for example, if we turn up this punch over here, and I'm just gonna scroll through the waveform, and you'll just notice that simply playing around like this can create so much different drives for your kick. But yeah, I'm just moving it around at this stage because I've got two nice layers and I just have to figure out how they work together. Now this character of this still already sounds quite nice to me, but it just needed to be reinforced a little bit with some warm layer over here again. And this warm layer is honestly just the easiest warm layer that I created, but it just works. Over here, if I open my Serum, it's basically just a sine wave with a noise, just playing it at the normal volume, I think. And I'm just putting this through some distortion, not even opening it up all the way because then it's gonna destroy the noise a little bit too much. But I'm not even bothering to use a filter on here. And this sound coming out of Serum, let me just open it up as much as I can so I'm sure that you'll hear it. It's just enough. Sometimes you don't need to do much with this warm layer. You can just try to use just a sine wave and some noise. Just that little bit of distortion is creating a nice warm and a little bit of an aggressive sub, and it's just nice and stable, and the noise is just working to create some more interesting sound behind the main sine wave that we're having. So exporting that, we're just adding this underneath our two previous layers, and it's just gonna make this tail sound a lot more fast. And now that I think about it, I don't think I actually ever showed you how I balance my layers. So let's just focus on that. So let's see, where are these sounds actually? This one is the resonant layer that we created. This is on the first crunchy layer, I think. Yes, and this should be the sub layer. And it is. Okay, and is there anything special in here? There is just a tiny bit of distortion. Let's turn it off for now. The first thing I'm doing is just thinking to myself, which of these layers is the best, is the most characterized, and which one do I want to stand out the most. And as you can see over here, it's this resonant layer that we created. And I'm playing this resonant layer, and while playing this resonant layer, I'm just gonna move this second till and just see where it sounds nice. And sounds nice in balance, but it doesn't take over that layer that we just decided is gonna be the most carrying layer of our kick. So making it move like this, just playing around with it and listening to it, I decided that this was the right amount of volume for it. And then I applied some distortion on here, because these two sounds are going through here and this little buzz is here. But this clean sub isn't distorted by this buzz over here. So over here, we're just putting some soft clip on there, pulling down the mix. And I feel like, distortion just works this way. You can create a nice and more tight sound and really combine some sounds together by just putting up some of the clip versions on here, so the hard clip or the soft clip, and then maybe pulling down the mix a little bit from that 50% to just balance things out, and it just works. We're having this sound first, and then with that distortion, it's just, making these sounds a little bit more glued together. And then I'm just basically balancing this out a little bit, giving it some more highs where I felt it needed it. And then I added this warm layer in here. And again, with this warm layer, you don't want to make it overpowering. You could either put it too high and then move it down lower until it sounds steady, or you can start off low and move it up and bring it up until it sounds imbalanced to you. That's up to you. But I'm just basically moving this around and seeing where I'm adding the right amount of sub and warmth to this character layers that we're making. And it's just a matter of playing around with that. And I stick to 43% in this instance. So now that I'm done with my till, I exported it, of course, but I felt it wasn't really giving the drive that I wanted. So I opened the punch, of course, over here as well. And we're gonna basically just glue these together by cutting it off at the right point. And just playing those together, it didn't really sound perfect yet. And I just tweaked this a little bit and stretched it out a little bit, but just let me show you how it sounds first of all, and then how it sounds after the stretching. And now if I apply the stretching, when I was creating the kick, I just really felt it needed this little bit of change to create a better flow for the punch into the till and the till into the punch again. Sometimes stretching too much can really destroy your till, so just pay attention that you don't overstretch it like this, because then of course it's just gonna sound crap. But just applying some tiny bits of stretching shouldn't be destroying your till. It's just a thing you gotta keep an eye out for. And now that we're looping these two layers together, it sounds nice, but I felt the punch and the till had to be glued together a little bit more. And that's where we add this little layer. And this layer is just the ending of the punch over here, as you can see. And I'm just putting this on the lower volume. Where is it? Over here. And this lower volume is just there to keep a little bit more of the punch going behind the till. Of course, I'm low cutting this quite much because all the sub frequencies from the punch that might still be playing, we don't want to have that interfering with our till. But I'll just add this one, and you'll hopefully notice that this resonance of the punch just stays alive a little bit longer. It might be a really small difference, but it just can help gluing your punch and your tail together. And then after this, it's actually quite easy. We're just applying some reverb over here, and this reverb comes straight from the punch, and applying some automation on here to make it move, and that sounds like this. And making that move like that and just putting that over the kick finishes our kick actually, and all that's left to do is limiting. And now I have my limiter on, but that's all right. If I just turn it off, you'll see that there's some few peaks being limited, and that's okay. But we want to push that a little bit more. So I'm just pushing that a tiny bit, and I came to the point of 2.9, where it just sounded nice and powerful, but it didn't destroy the entire movement that my kick had. As you can see over here, there was some movement still left for the kick, but that's okay. You don't need to destroy the entire movement that your kick has. Just make it a little bit more powerful by limiting it. Now I'm aware that maybe some of you might not have Pro L, for example, and that's okay actually. If you just want to export your sound like this, and you still feel that it's needing a little bit of limiting, you can just put it in the playlist and go to the boost over here. And this tiny bit of boosting can also give you the same effects. It's just acting the same way. And like this, maybe just a tiny bit less. It's just a little bit more fiddly because this knob can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to work with. But yeah, just putting it at the right spot, it gives you the same sound, and it sounds like this. I hope you liked it and you learned something from this, and hopefully I'll see you back soon again. Cheers!